Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Business of Cyber series. We're about 10 minutes late. That's because we got a special guest that actually came into the studio this morning. I'll introduce him shortly. If this is the first time that you're joining us, welcome. And if you're one of the regulars that comes to the show, thanks for your participation, thanks for your support, thanks for all the likes that you offer on LinkedIn. Today is talking about OT cyber teams. So whether you're in IT, whether you're OT, whether you're not even close to cybersecurity, the hope for today's show is that you gain a little bit more of an insight as to the challenges, the value driving, and kind of the everyday tactics that are employed by some of the more experienced folks that are dealing with OT cyber challenges within the critical sectors. As you recall, the Business of Cyber series is all about one particular belief system in the industrial sectors, and that is safe, reliable, and profitable operations are rooted in great cybersecurity. On the OT side, and there's a big challenge in the industry right now. It's threefold. There's not enough really great people, there's not enough time, and there's not enough budget to really address the cybersecurity risks and threats that are out there. So the entire Business of Cyber series is about bringing people onto the show to talk about their experiences about how you can use the resources that you have to expand and mature your overall cyber program. And I'm really excited to introduce our guest today. Some of you may know him as Bemi, some of you may know him as Shola, but if you're in the Texas or the Houston region and you're in critical infrastructure, this gentleman who is sitting by my side here has been in OT for quite some time. Shola, it's a real pleasure to have you. Thanks for taking the time and investing the time to tell your story for the Business of Cyber series.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me this morning. It's a pleasure being here.
Appreciate it. I appreciate he's a very busy man, and he and I decided we want to bring you into the actual office considering both in Houston. So we are looking forward to this kind of experience today. And so as we get ready, I wanted to just show what is the actual title of today's program. Leading OT cyber teams. How did this actually come about? Well, I think you were traveling, and you put a picture on LinkedIn with a hard hat on, and you got so many comments and likes within like the first hour. I reached out to him and said, hey, where have you been? What are you working on? And he was traveling for a facility. I said, this would be a great time to tell folks with the industry kind of why that's important. You know?
It is important. If you look back into OT, it's been 100 years. That's where the crown jewel is to make money. Over time, the technology has evolved in so many ways. And as evolved, it creates another level of security concerns. But at the same time, these guys are still there. Either we have technology or not, they're still there to make money. What they need to do. Coming from an OT leadership standpoint, it's very important to understand why some things are set up the way it was set up, why some processes are being pushed or being pushed, and why they're being executed or being executed. In doing so, the issue today in the industry is that we have a lot of technology-based individuals who does not understand the engineering side of things. Right? The engineering side of things taking time to go out into the front line, into the fields, and listen to the engineers, to the operators, and learn how the tools are operating, how they're talking to each other. For you to come up with any strategy is very important because for you to be able to be successful, you need the buy-in of the OT guys on the real side, on the manufacturing side, to come together and help you be successful in what you want to do. But if you don't, it's going to be very difficult because the main driver of the operation are those guys in the field.
Yeah, that's huge. And you've been in the, I mean, you have like a lot of experienced OT leaders right now. I'm interested in you helping us understand how did you get here, right? And so, if you would explain to the team, well, let's look at the agenda. So we're going to cover 4 items, folks. I want to give Shola the opportunity to talk about his experience. He's worked in IT, he's worked in service companies, he's worked in operators, in totally different sectors. How does that kind of play in? I'm interested to hear his perspective there. But there are primarily 4 topics. One of them is about kind of the understanding OT cyber. One is about the leadership in OT cyber. Really excited to talk about some strategies and tactics that have worked for you, Shola, in the past. And then we'll finish out with advice. One thing that I do want to state is if you're watching right now, go ahead and get on LinkedIn, share that you're talking about this, that you're listening to this. One of the great things that we had happen last week is we actually tripled our audience during the actual show. Usually you have registrants that come in, they talk, they stay for the majority of the time. In this particular case, we're looking for people to actually join in. So don't be afraid to share it out there. And then also, any comments that you make on the actual post, we can see. we're happy to throw this up if you'd like a question answered or if you want to talk about a specific topic. So I'm going to make this really big so that folks at home can see it. Tell us a little bit about maybe the last decade or two working in the industry and how you landed in your role.
So years ago, going to college, I decided to take it upon myself, do a little bit of research in terms of futuristic of the oil and gas and technology. And I was once told that there were a bunch of engineers coming out, technology background. There's a lot of IT guys, engineering background. However, a lot of the OEMs, manufacturers, are developing next generation solutions that needs to, so for you to be able to handle those states and to understand what languages. So I took it upon myself to dig deeper into the engineering side of things and also the IT side of things and also cyber side of things. Because for every time you open a new solution, there's another level of cyber headache you create.
Yeah, there's a lot of. Do you feel that kind of back and forth struggle when it comes to digitization? Like,
yes.
Everybody says it's digitized, we put this data in the cloud, we can connect everything, but that always creates headaches for you, right?
Correct. And that's where you need to understanding what the IT side of things, IT sectors, and understanding OT is very, very important. Right. Not everything from the OT goes to the cloud.
Well, not all the data from OT should be mixed with data from IT. It should be, there's a lot of discussions about convergence or divergence of data models of people. Do you not agree that you've been, I know in the chemical sector, you've been in the drilling sector, the transportation sector, you're in the service sector. How does OT cybersecurity differ by sector? Or would you say they're more alike? Just curious.
Yeah, actually more alike. Yeah. I know what you're looking at, and there's enough space for before you use just IT and OT.
Right.
Now there's IT, there's IoT, and there's OT.
There's so many terminology. I mean, if we could just teach everybody the terms. We had somebody on the show recently, and it was an amazing conversation where we were diving into the top 5 to 10 words of whether it was zero trust, it was kind of data, IT, OT conversion, what was IoT, and just the dichotomy of how people define these things plays a huge role. Give us an understanding at the most, if we were talking to vendors,
yes,
how would you describe OT cybersecurity?
OT is called the crown jewel where the money is being made. IT is where the supporting tools needed to make decisions at the corporate level. And IoT is where the handshake happens between IT and OT.
Ah, interesting. I had not heard that. I thought I think it was, we got some feedback. If you just pull a little bit closer to the mic, maybe we'll get right. I heard somebody say the other day, OT manages all your computer systems and your back-end processes that people don't think about, that actually makes the money for your critical sector, whereas IT really governs all the data and the human interfaces so that they can, kind of review the front.
Like reporting, decision making.
That's right. So when you think about understanding OT at its most nascent level, we had this conversation the other day. I think you have to be an expert in IT in order to be successful on the OT side.
Yes.
But you don't have to be even remotely knowledgeable of OT practices to be successful in IT in the past.
Correct.
Do you agree with that?
Correct.
How much pressure is that placing on, how much pressure is that placing right now on the OT industry or the security side of critical sectors right now?
Immense pressure, actually.
Because there's not enough people?
There's not enough people, and people don't have the time to stay abreast of the constant evolution of technology.
That's right. So is it easier to train somebody that is trained and schooled in IT and teach them OT processes? Or is it easy to train an automation expert security?
It's easy to train automation expert security.
So if that's the case, don't you think that we have a healthy supply of people that can get trained in cybersecurity?
We do. The issue is that most people are just opening their eyes to the opportunity coming from the automation to the IT. If you look at today, in the past 3-4 years, during the economic situation, a lot of engineers are switching to IT. A lot of other professions are going into IT, but actually more precise, more OT. because of the technology evolution. In IT today, let me give you a good example. You can do a server support, workstation support. That's where it stops. In OT, you're doing engineering and some other IT and server support down below. Looking at data. In back in days, you probably need 4 or 5 people on the OT side to do some things. Today, you can do one person. Now understand both engineering and IT all at the same time. I can run my simulation, I can run my intelligence data, I can run my operation data, have an technology background, through a server, through a workstation, through a report easily. Whereas somebody comes from the IT side, on some engineering,
Right.
they just put in data they don't know what they're looking at.
So do you, it's not just OT and IT, we talked about that. Is there anything else that an OT expert has to know besides just the OT and the IT security side of the house to be successful?
So there is pros and cons on both sides. Most guys on the OT side are very, very deep dive into the OT world. They possess enough technical skills to get things done, whether with technology or not. The issue is that they don't have the soft skills from a strategy standpoint.
You're talking about presenting upwards.
Presenting upwards.
So, and this is a topic we've talked a lot about, Joel, and that is IT folks, whether good or bad, for the last couple of decades, have not had to report immense data models, visualizations. They haven't had to explain this so well. They haven't tried to explain this so well. But because on the operational technology side of the house, out of all of our, let's say, out of all of our rigs and all of our chemical sites, these 15% are the most critical. That's where the operators paying us, that's where we're making our P&L. Because that is so critical to the business success, right. These OT cybersecurity leaders have to have yet another little gold badge on their profile, which is you need to be able to present to leadership.
Yes, it's very important because that's where the budget comes from.
What do business leaders today want to hear from OT security leaders? What are they looking for?
Pretty much simplicity. They want transformation, return on investment, right. And pretty much
Are we good? Is it working? I've always said safe, reliable, profitable operations. Yeah. In that order, right? Correct. If they're safe, they're reliable, and they're profitable, that means there's no noise coming from us. They just wanted to work the way it was designed.
Yes, because before the technology were making money. And now we have technology to still make the money, keep the money down.
So this is a big topic. If you asked 100 CISSOs right now in the critical sector,
yes.
This one question: do you have enough resources to do your job? What do you think the percentage of them would say? Yes, I do. The percentage that say no, I don't. How do you think the average CISSO right now is faring in critical sectors? Because you talked about, are we making money, right? I believe that we don't have an endless amount of money to spend on cybersecurity at the site level. Do you agree? What do you think the CISSOs are saying?
Most probably say they don't have enough people that is on the background, but they probably do, they just don't realize it.
Because they could pull them from other areas?
That's what we're going to people, process technology.
So let's do an example in the drilling. You've got an ET, an engineering tech right up there,
yes.
Responsible for a lot of the different technical automation systems and everything. But they're not always traditionally trained at site yet.
Yes, they're not, but in my space, they're getting trained.
That's right.
I'm training them.
That's key. So that's what you're saying. You've got people that are on the automation or the technical side of the house, they're on the design side, they're installing firewalls. They're the person that is looked to at the site.
To your surprise, the current ETs and the operators engineers are extremely technical these days. Very technical. They know what's on this.
And did that position them to be good stewards and allies of cybersecurity?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So you think the more technical they are, the more that they can.
Yes. I will give you a good example. I can pick someone from the field and put them on the corporate side. Mm-hmm. And give them 6 months, they will succeed the right training. I can take someone from the corporate side and put them on the field. It's going to take them years.
I agree with you. Yeah. I mean, I'm don't have the experience you have, but I do have the experience of going from the field to the work.
Right.
And there's an element of simplicity that I think people that wear hard hats and steel toes, they just get it because they're so focused on safety, they're so focused on production, they're so focused on reliability that you can get drowned pretty hard with 74 controls in a cybersecurity assessment or some sort of cybersecurity strategy. The OT people with the most experience will be like, hey, that one are probably the most important and key, because what we're really trying to solve is unauthorized access here, which would open this, isn't it, right? Or we're trying to solve this firewall from going down because I don't have a critical spare. It's on the other side of the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah.
I mean, it's easy because, for example, on the OT side, for most CISOs out there, I always say, I would rather do more, meaning that with the right technology, I can automate a lot of things and train the right people from the OT side to manage it. Even some of the IT side as well also. And to your point, you were referring to a few minutes ago, the key, the hardest part of it is to find the right people.
I think that's in any job, but I think when you increase the technical expertise needed,
Yes.
when you increase let's say the responsibilities on their shoulders,
You have to delegate. You have to.
it's hard to find the right.
Yeah, and then when you find the right people, how do you retain them in the industry? Because it's very tough today. OT is exploding. Everybody's looking for the right person, and retaining them is very dicey. That's where some of the leadership comes into in terms of providing not just as a leader, but acting as a mentor to those guys, constantly providing them enough tools to succeed in
Or a career.
Yes. Give a clear career plan that you can measure the gains.
It's interesting. I was talking to another security leader in the space the other day, and we were just talking about. And one of the things that I spoke to her about was how important it is when you're hiring somebody or someone from the team to be able to chart multiple paths for that individual, especially in a large company. And we got on this topic that's a great idea, but if we don't know where our cyber strategy is going to go, if we don't know how much resources we're going to get, it's hard to do that. You have to sort of make it up as you go. And I think that, the majority of critical sector companies are investing today more than they used to.
Correct.
But I'm in agreement with you. I mean, if you can't retain your people and train your people, then you're going to always be starting over every time.
Yeah, and then plus you have to be transparent also.
Yeah.
Because if I have the right people, show me being transparent with them as well based on what plan to do it, how they can do it. You'd be surprised how much knowledge they have. They can help you from a tax case standpoint.
Isn't that funny?
That's
It's like you don't hire people to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
You hire people to sit in a room and all collaborate and tell us what to do, right? As leaders. I agree. I like the idea that there are existing leaders, there are existing folks at the shop level, at the rig level, at the site level, the facility level. But I also think you have to have support from their ops leaders,
yes.
because it's time they got to take away from doing something else. You got to have budget to train them.
Right.
So I think it takes a strong leader, not technically, a strong leader that can work with the other departments to pitch the importance of that person who's not a cyber person, it's an automation person.
Correct.
In 2 years, that person is going to be able to run this entire facility. Here's the plan.
And that's the ultimate plan because you have that soft skills able to relate to other leaders on the other side.
Well, that brings up a good next point, because we flip to kind of the second slide of leadership in OT cyber.
Yes.
Starting from the top to the bottom, what does it take to be a good leader in OT cybersecurity in 24, you think?
Listen more, speak less.
To who?
Everybody.
Is he the quietest guy in the room? Everywhere you go.
Yeah, pretty much your employees that you're mentoring, that you're leading, they have a lot to add. And then when you talk to the leadership as well, also, they're there for a reason. When you listen, there's a lot of stuff in between that you don't say that comes out. And that allows you able to strategize and able to satisfy everybody on both sides.
So I'm going to put a fake scenario in front of you. test how you handle this one. You don't have a lot of people on the team. You need to do hardware refresh in 40% of your facilities. You haven't really, you don't have the greatest relationship with your OEMs because there's been a lot of turnover. Or the board of directors is pushing down, wanting to get more secure, more secure. It's kind of a mess, right? And you need more resources. You need more from leadership. How do you go and present to the top leaders that whatever you inherit is not really ready to scale, or it's not? So how do you approach that?
So one thing you don't do with the leaders, you don't be the messenger of bad news. You never want to do that. You want to come up with a plan. I plan to do this, I plan to do that.
I've assessed the situation. Here's the good, here's the bad, here's the plan to fix it.
And it stops right there.
And when you present it's not a plan or remediation plan, that's probably more random. This is probably more strategic. How long of a lens do you recommend OT security leaders should be thinking? Are we talking about a 3-month plan? Are we talking about a 3-year plan?
So there's multi-plan, there's a short-term and long-term plan. There's a 6-month plan, there's a 3-year plan. And in between, you can adjust the plan as you go because you cannot control some other variables like global logistics, manufacturing, the HSE. There's a lot of stuff that you cannot control. So you have to give you some space for that. And human factors as well also. Probably.
So yeah, I agree with that. I always think, especially when you're delivering, I would say bad news, but if you're delivering an assessment result your first 100 days in a role, I don't think people hire great people so that they get told everything's great.
So on the assessment piece, one thing people always forget, whatever environment you're looking at, there's some level of risk. There's never zero risk. You need to establish that expectation from the get-go. So you're not walking to the room and everybody thinking the board is great. No, the board is great. It's boring.
Yeah, they're looking for you to tell them where the blind spots are.
And the blind spot, sometimes depends on which time you're looking at it.
Which is scope, which is time, what perspective you're looking at. Do you feel that industry-wide,
right?
You talk to a lot of leaders, you talk to a lot of product companies, service, you're very enriched. Do you believe that the majority of critical sector company leadership, whether it's at the board, CEO, CFO, CEO, do you think they all are thinking alike when it comes to OT cybersecurity, or are they all kind of different?
No, right now they are. I would say maybe 5 or 6 years ago, maybe different, but now everybody's pretty much up to speed.
And how would you define up to speed?
So right now, everywhere you look, there's OT everywhere. If you have a crown jewel, and you have a board, you have SEC, you have TSA, you have
it's unmistakably important.
It's important.
No one can deny it.
But it's everywhere.
And do you feel that we as an industry, okay, are doing a good enough job? Can we improve as security leaders on how we take that momentum and use it for good?
Yes.
You do.
I believe so, and it takes a lot of awareness.
There's a lot of awareness.
Yeah.
So when we think about leadership at OT cybersecurity, give me some examples of times where somebody missed an opportunity to be a good leader in OT. They went a certain direction, and when you're looking back, it's like we should have done that. Can you give us some examples of times where leadership could have really improved?
Again, it depends on situation. Sometimes it could be level of urgency or time. Sometimes things come out of nowhere and people make some rush decision to satisfy them now. So I always say this, there are 2 types of leaders. There's a push leaders, there's a pull leader.
Okay.
A push leader is more like a military general. He doesn't care how many people get killed. He just want to win the war and get to the end zone. What I say is advantage to that. Next time, years later, the war come out again. The military guy is old. Everybody is dead. You have time to teach anybody. And you can there's no business continuity. But a pool leader, it takes time. Bring everybody along slowly. And by the time you know it, when that time comes, that leader can move to something else. And everybody else will carry on.
You just described the last 20 years of my life. I was a fiery dragon coming out of the Army. Everything was, we got to go now, we got to do it like this. I agree with you. I mean, there's a time and place for that. But if you're given enough resources of time and people, train them how to fight those fights.
I'm looking around as a push leader. Yes,
sometimes you got to push.
Yeah, because let's say you have a major outage, something's going on.
Sure.
At that point in time, that's where your type A personality comes out.
Right.
So everybody get on the bridge, let's get things done. And it's right now. It works. When again, I said based on time.
No,
if you have the time, the pool is excellent. But if something now, what is coming to an end, then you push.
Well, I think that's what this is transitioning to our next kind of positive. I think what I would add to that is a good OT cyber leader knows when to push and pull, knows when to get super tactical. Let's fix that item, that zone, that control for that facility, or sits back and says, hey, what's our 3?
And to do so, you have to understand your business. You have to understand the criticality of the environment. If I know that maybe my prime jewel is being under a lot of pressure or something, that will affect the company reputationally, of course, that I pay, that push comes out. If it's something that maybe a bunch of system out there that needs to be upgraded, but doesn't have immediate impact on the overall company. That's what
I've always lived, I like what you're saying, because what you're saying is you've got to have a foundational understanding of what is the credentials, what are the most important things. I've always said, if you're in your first 100 days, or if you're in the first 100 days of your 1,000th day, right, doing a business impact analysis of your company to figure out where the real business opportunities lie. Follow that up with controls-based assessment to figure out, what do we have?
Correct.
Follow that up with a risk assessment. What you're doing as you go down this path is you are really determining where am I going to go.
I mean, let me even go even deeper into that. I mean, it's like having a business. It's like having a ranch, an open field with a bunch of cows.
Okay.
And then you walk into the business, and the first thing you want to do based on a CISSO or security or whatsoever, you want to put a fence. That's the first line of defense and control, which firewalls and rest kind of things. After that, you already put the fence on the ranch. Now you want to say, okay, as a business, what are the products, what are the things that need some major operate? That is the controls in place, such as the alarm systems, the cameras, and whatnot. That's what you just described as a controls. And then once you establish that, you're going to do the risk assessment, which is okay. Let me assess against those controls to see how effective they are.
That's right.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was simple. In the words of ranches and cows. No, I think people move too early to risk assessment sometimes. How can you run an effective risk assessment if you don't know 2 things? Number one, what do I have in place?
Right.
What are my controls? Are they effective? Do I have compensating controls in place? And then number 2, do I have a real understanding of the business and threats facing?
Correct.
So, risk is a combination of the likelihood of these things all colliding. And I think we overuse the word risk. Personally.
Yes, we do.
Because if you get real risk experts in a room, they're going to say, where are all these data models and these data models? And if you don't have that's also the value of bringing in a really skilled consultant. What I'm kind of sensing from you is this patient understanding and review of what's out there. And for you, kind of the whole purpose of this conversation was you traveling to the rigs, right? And that brings us up to what I think is a really powerful point: strategies and tactics that these really great OT leaders use. How often do you travel to these sites, and what are you looking to do when you travel?
One, I'm trying to bring consistency to the environment, and to do consistency, you have to know your asset. To know your asset, what you protect.
We're talking about assets like the actual functioning components of the rig or the chemical. Are we talking about assets like your actual assets that you have, like your firewalls and all of your
both direct and indirect, the actual
everything.
everything you need to know. And when I say asset, not just the physical asset itself, the resources as well, and their processes as well. I mean, I can speak for myself, like in my career, everybody knows. If I'm into an environment, I dive deep heads on. I want to know
Everything about
everything. Because there's no way you should be coming up with policies and all these things, not understand the environment. You have to understand everything, sit down with these guys, understand why do these things in such a way.
And what about, like, I'll give you two examples where I think it would be very important to know, do we have trust and faith and continuity with maybe the OEM or the supplier?
You have to establish all that trust. And to establish that trust, you have to go to the field and spend the time.
Somebody told me one time in the Army, if you expect it, you must inspect it.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Pretty much.
You're saying, I don't want to just know that an assessment was done of my controls. I don't just want to talk to the ET on the phone. I'm gonna actually fly out there.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you're not double checking. This is a planned exercise that got you on the list to come out there. Organize, you're spending time because you want to see at the most ground level how things are working.
Correct. That's the best way you can be successful. And those guys are watching you as well because
they're trying to see how much you know about their system.
I mean, even if you know so much, you have to humble yourself.
But you have to be in a constant state of learning.
I mean,
but that right there, I think, is the number one reason that we have TIT divergence. People, I mean, there's still teams today, Sean, where the IT teams and the OT teams, for whatever reason, are told, not only do I not want you to share data, not only are you not going to share budgets, you're not going to talk to each other. And if this group shares it with this group, I don't think that's a healthy way of doing business anymore.
No, that's changed. This has changed. I mean, I can say from my space, we just share information.
Right.
I like to know what it's doing.
There's value to separate too.
Yes. I mean, we do separate to some level, but we do share a lot of information to be successful. Being collaborative is very important. I mean, if I know from operation what the plan I'm doing, because everything you do today touches cyber, everything, all the new technologies, all the processes.
Got a question here, which is actually a pretty good one. How do you establish initial trust?
Trust.
Yeah, well, I'm going to follow up that question and say, how do you establish trust with the ops leaders who are actually drilling for oil, the ops leaders who are actually mixing chemicals, who have been doing this for 30 years? They still think cyber is not an important component of what they do. And I'm not saying this happens a lot. How do you establish trust with these folks?
So,
and if it's your first time going, because I've been there.
So if you look at it very carefully around the globe, the most successful people in this world, they're all solution drivers.
Okay.
When you work in that environment, you want to know what can I do for you to make your life easier, more simple.
Service leadership.
Service leadership. It could be the simplest of the simplest. You can add value to those things for them. Forget what you're coming to do. As I'm learning, and I also am asking them, what can I do for you?
I would take that another step further. When you take a look at a bunch of different framework profiles have tried to do this, they've tried to map security controls to business outcomes. Okay, I'm a big believer that if you can't say our investment in new firewalls, our investment in an incident response exercise directly affects our capacity to X, and that X is a business outcome. It could be reduce the likelihood of a safety incident, maintain quality of the product. Those action verbs to me are very important because if you don't connect the two, then you're never going to get budget, you're never going to get the resources of time. So what you're saying is just jump all the way to the end and ask the ops leader, what is it that you are most concerned about? And then you're saying you're going to walk that back to a security control.
Correct. That's the only way. I mean, because if you try to do it the other way around,
There's no class.
it's no. I mean,
That takes going to the grid. It takes going to the pipeline. It takes going to the chemical.
that's why I say in my career, I've learned from great mentors in the industry. You have to go to the field and sit down with these guys and ask questions and learn from them.
You hear that, IT folks? If you've been in IT or maybe you're in college, there is a positive correlation in my book. I think you'd agree. There's a positive correlation in how much time you spend in the field and how effective you're going to be in cybersecurity in the critical sectors. Because the whole point, I mean, a lot of people may push back on this, but the whole point of cybersecurity investments is for safe, reliable operations, right? And so if you don't know what the operations outcome has to be, how are you going to be successful?
Correct. I mean, you have to understand those things. Even today, in the past, where you don't have to be connected to a device to run operations. But guess what? Today, there's a lot of connected device. And if somebody able to get their hands on it, it can cause a lot of HSC, health and safety.
Right.
You should be able to explain that after you gain the trust, explain those steps, connect those dots. I kid you not, they will follow you. And once it's said, they will be your. Yes, yes.
So, I mean, the theme that I'm coming up with is, there's a ton of technical things that have to be learned and trained to be successful in OT cyber. We haven't talked about any of that. We're just talking about how do you approach the job of OT cyber. And you're saying, tie in with the ops folks. Understand who your customer is.
Correct. You have to understand the business both from the inside and outside.
Very good point. Well, I have a question. So, OT cyber, we're not just dealing with computer systems. We're not just dealing with hardware components and software. We're dealing with actual, automation systems. And there's no doubt that original equipment manufacturers play a huge role in not only the procurement, the installation, all the way to the design. Where do you feel the industry is best served when you think about the teamwork that a critical sector asset of it and their OEM partners or their OEM vendors have? Because there's a lot of belief that I'm not going to build a ton of OT cybersecurity training for my team on that asset. Because I'm buying all of this equipment, I'm just going to buy services on top of it. Or my expectation is that there's a certification, and with all my different components being certified effectively. Then there's another school of thought that says these are partners, these are folks that are going to help us, but we have to build our own cyber skill set to work with them effectively. Where do you feel that the product suppliers fit within the world of OT cyber for us?
The supplies, over time, I think there's a lot of transmission going on in that space in terms of, in the past, they go into the cave and create something and come out on the side to everybody. That has changed. Now, the suppliers are reaching out to the asset owner. What do you need? And they collaborate together in designing the right solution for the industry. That's where everything's going on. Most of the successful suppliers today, if you look at Michigan names,
right,
that's what they are doing today. And as they do that collaboration, they're actually providing some indirect training.
So we're talking about the project level, on a refresh level, on a greenfield or brownfield project level, or are we talking as an industry?
Both. I mean, today, if I decide to acquire a solution, before we close the chapter, I want to get some level of training to my guys.
I totally agree. I was, when I was at Shell, when I was doing audits, there were audits on a lot of facilities, and we got into this habit that we were going above and beyond trying to get the vendor to help us. We were double checking the vendor. It just seemed like we were placing efforts in the wrong places. We were telling the vendor, you're not doing this, wrong, or right, fix it. It should be the flip side. The vendor should be coming to us and giving us that. And I think that's a good point. Is they're they have to be part of the solution. You should be choosing them based on who wants to be part of the loan, understanding what your challenges are. I think it's their equipment. They should be able to train your staff. That's what you're saying.
Right. I mean, it's not a partnership today.
Has to be a partnership. Where do you feel partnership with other asset owners, whether it's data sharing? I mean, I know there's a bunch of different methods and models to do that. Do you feel that is helping the asset owner world right now, being able to collectively share data with other players in your same space?
Yes, because I mean, we all look at the same type of data, same type of operation. It's not so high.
It's like we're all in this together because if one of us fails, then the other is going to have all the same problems, right? Are there some sectors that you think are a little bit further behind? Not to point fingers, but I'll give you an example. I think transportation is really struggling because it's such it's a tough margins industry. You've got vessels where you got a vessel owner, you have a vessel somebody who's managing the vessel and riding and operating it, you have the port, You also have the owner of the goods on the vessel. All these players all have a vested interest in the security of that vessel. But who really owns the responsibility of kicking the dog? Do that on top of an industry that doesn't have a lot of margins, like let's say wastewater. I took two off the top. I'll let you say who you think. I mean, we both work in oil and gas, but what do you think, sector-wise?
That's a very broad one.
It's a broad question, right?
Yes, yeah. One, I said the asset owner. Generally take the front role in the subject.
I think a lot of, but I think
But, and also, I think also, if you look at it, listen carefully to the industry. Everybody shit based on the noise.
the what?
According to noise.
Oh, yeah.
So think about the pipeline that got hit a few years ago.
Right.
That woke up in pipeline industry so hard. Transportation of that a couple of times also. That because if you don't get hit from the cyber standpoint, everything stays quiet.
Well, there's a big argument right now, Joel, that because there have not been kinetic attacks.
Yes.
And the amount of those kinetic attacks have not resulted in negative outcomes for the businesses.
Yeah.
That everybody's sort of looking at each other saying, should we be investing this much?
That's the noise. That's what I'm talking about.
You're saying that because there's less noise,
Yes.
it's becoming harder to get resources.
Correct.
I could argue that.
Because think about it this way: it's like buying a car, and I'm thinking, should I put a full coverage on it or liability?
Depends on what you heard on the news that week, right?
Exactly. If you hear, oh, by the way, in this city, there's a lot of stolen pickup trucks. I'm a
big believer. We've deployed a massive amount of capital as an industry on highly technical solutions that, I'm going to spot this for a second, are not configured effectively.
Yes, that's another.
Like we're talking years of owning these products, and either they don't have a team or they didn't have the resources, but they're not configured properly, they're not gaining a lot from it. Is that a product company fault? No. Is it an integrator fault? No. I don't think it's anybody's fault. I just think that we're sitting at a point in the industry where everybody's sort of, we've got to continue to make investments to get past this first big hump of data modeling.
So I'll say this from a supplier standpoint. Everyone wants to sell. Everyone wants to make money.
No, that's not true. That's not true. Okay.
Don't make money. It is the issue I see personally is that you sell and you didn't help me to go big. And you walk away. What makes you think I'm going to invest millions of dollars in you next time?
Sure. That's happening.
Yeah.
And it's not about pinpointing who's at fault. I do think that if a CFO approves $2 million to be spent on something, and 2 years later, when either those security leaders or that vendor says, hey, we're going to upgrade, we're going to go to more plants, and it's $3 million now, there has to be, because there always has been in business, there has to be a question from the C-suite back to security leadership says, what did we get out of it? And I'm not sure, well, we didn't have anything happen. I don't think that's a good answer, but what is the right answer?
No, so things doesn't have to happen. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes that's what you do an assessment. Against your independent assessment against your environment. And that always shows a lot of things.
I think we need to do better at that as an industry. At S4 this year, Dale Peterson talked about what happened in the safety industry or the safety component industry is that they started tracking near misses. They started tracking.
Yes.
It wasn't a full-blown accident. We're not doing that. API has a really great standard for doing that. I've been a big proponent. If you can't stand up in front of your leadership and say, well, we did not have a major kinetic attack. Great, all the investment worked. But let me tell you all the other things that were prevented. Let me show you all the other things that we were able to get. I don't think that's happening.
It's not widely happening, but people are catching up.
Good. I mean, at some point, we have to look at each other and say, is this working? I think there's a bunch of companies that, you're right, a bunch of different companies trying to go public, a bunch of different companies are really getting scrutinized right now on how much they've spent to deploy these products. And this theory of return on investment, ROI, I use it all the time. But ROI doesn't always have to be dollars.
No,
And to me, that's what a good OT cybersecurity leader does.
because to me, my ROI is you can look at it two ways. Either server attempt were successful, or an independent assessor coming to the environment and based on maturity of my environment, that's my ROI.
Or maybe the ROI is just our ability to recognize the steps. To me, that's pretty.
That's probably when I said, no matter where you go, there's also intent. And you constantly stop it and other things. If you want to go down that road, there's a long list of things you need to stop it. But the main thing with the report is that somebody comes to environment independent.
Yeah.
Environment probably is okay, based on your maturity. This way you want things you need to do. That's an ROI. And then plus, when you look at without in oil and gas, there's a lot of attempt all the time.
Of course.
If you have 10 oil and gas companies in the city, and one of them gets a successful attack, you're not on that list. That's an ROI. You're actually doing something right.
It takes a level of ingenuity. And no, that's a good point. As we kind of steer towards the latter part of our discussion, it's been great. I appreciate the details. There is somebody watching online right now that is maybe an automations person, or maybe an IT person, maybe they're in college. Maybe they're in a totally separate field and they're so attracted to OT cyber, they said, I gotta get in this. What advice would you give to somebody to get into this space and start acting? What would you, depending on what you think, how would you guide somebody in this space?
Start reading on white papers, past some events,
Start with,
and have a good result.
where do you think certificates, certifications, trainings sit compared to potentially real world experience?
Real world is much higher. That you can read, you can learn as much as you can, but being there, there's no comparison.
What's the one non-technical skill set that you could hire 10 people to go to your team and you wanted that one skill? It's not technical.
Listening.
Listening. Observer. What about technical skill set? What do you think is at the top of your list right
From the OT standpoint,
Yeah.
understanding consumer segmentation.
now? Hold on now. Hold on now. There's a lot of people, I believe the Purdue model is not to be used for security purposes, right?
You understand segmentation rule in the IoT, you know what I'm talking about.
Here, the control starting. Put this on.
So
So understand it, how to apply it, from a theoretical perspective.
it's applying is where the rule gets wrong.
Tell me more about that.
Not a little flexible. But okay, that's why we came up with IoT, the handshake. That's you have multiple level of segmentation, so you would isolate when something happens. That's the fundamental rule behind it, the foundation. If something happens to a system, you can isolate that system on its own, by itself.
I agree with you theoretically. I just think there's a lot of people that roll hard that it's not security architecture.
And that's why, because I said there's a distinction between IT and OT.
Yeah.
When you talk to a person from IT about security, they're thinking something different. There's a reason why fundamentally is different, because when something happens, that's when you realize the benefit of it. When your client is under attack, trust me, they will not understand why you were putting it in the first place.
I understand. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. This has been eye-opening. Anytime that we can bring somebody with real-world experience, put on hard hats. I think it's great. I love your passion and your commitment to listening. One of the big things that I think we don't do enough of right now is there's so many things hitting the security team, whether it's STC or whether it's, think about these people that have facilities all over the world. They're having to deal with local, regional mandates, different, whether it's pipelines, whether it's rigs, it's very different than chemicals. So you don't have as many operators that have to say, this is the level of standard maturity that you have. Over on this rig is something different. I think every sector has challenges, but I think one thing that you're saying Listen to the ops leaders.
Just listen.
Listen to what they need, and then apply that back to security.
They've been doing this for 100 years. And they're successful. But it's,
It goes to a thought that I have. I spoke at somewhere this year, and I said, look, safety has always been an issue, but it became an investable issue, let's say in the 80s. So we said, we cannot have people getting hurt. Just, we can't accept it. So they started, especially in the oil and gas industry, with this incredible fundamental approach to it, and it became a part of the culture. And I've always said they didn't keep spending infinitely on safety measures. It just at some point flattened out because everybody understood this is safe. You tie that to where cybersecurity is going to be in 10 years. We have to find a way to make cybersecurity investments have capital. Because we can't just charge more for the fuel. We can't charge more for the plastics.
that's where I mentioned, that's where the tactical come in terms of.
Just to try to save resources, especially.
Exactly. I mean, for example, if I have about 21 sites, I don't have to put somebody, I don't have to put 21 resources on one site. Everything's done.
Yeah, but if I'm a product company, I told my investors that there's 21 sites and sell 21 units. So I'm going to push for 21 units to get in there, right?
I can put 21 technology
Maybe.
and essentially manage and have the engineers.
Unless only 3 of their 21 sites are critical, and right, and then the other 18, they may not even have the P&L to put technology in place or to do exercises.
Well, there's always other way around to do things.
Compensating control.
Exactly.
I'm with you. I'm arguing for you. I just think that as an industry, we think like everything has to have, I mean, every ranch has to have a fence.
You have to have offensive stuff.
Sure.
Right? You have to understand your critical side and your critical needs. You have to understand your less critical side. We can put compensating control in place. Whatsoever, that's why they training awareness to your engineers and operators. Give them the enough tools to be a frontline.
Yeah. It's a circular equation. You change one thing over here, one thing over here, it all changes.
Yeah.
So that's finishing us up. I mean, that's why you need dynamic leadership in the OT side. Appreciate what you're doing for the industry. Appreciate the example you're setting. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're in IT and you're in ops or you're in OT cyber, travel more, visit the facilities, get a market, understand how your business is making money, and figure out what you can do to help that operational lead. Thanks for your time today. Any final words for the audience?
So thanks for having me. Again, like I said, the industry is still evolving. Don't get comfortable. My keyword I always say, be nosy. That's my philosophy. I'm very nosy. I want to know.
And I'm going to get out there and talk more with all the different people. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Business of Cyber Show. We thank you for joining us. It's all about resources. This one was about people. This was about budget. And this was about saving time out there. We thank you, Shoal, for coming on to the show. We wish you the best of luck in your future. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be live next week again, 10 a.m. Central Time. Stay tuned for more information on who's going to be joining us. Thanks and have a great day.
Thank you.